The thoughts, views, expressions, and opinions of this podcast, as well as its hosts, are for entertainment, educational, and informational purposes only. We simply want to encourage, shed insight, empower, equip, and inspire those who listen. We are not trained professionals or claim to be. It does not constitute or take place of actual advice from your doctor or therapist. We hope you enjoy the show. Thank you. Yee.
That looks good.
That looks good.
Yeah,
Looks great. You look great, bro.
First off, I'm behind the camera for a reason.
Yay! we gotta thank Tyler.
Yeah, the man behind the lens.
The man behind the lens, and sometimes in front of the lens, bro.
Okay.
And he's you don't see him in the camera, but he decided to wear camo just like me. And that's how brothers think alike. We telepathically tell each other what to wear. It's amazing. And it's also amazing that we're getting this like nice little cold front. We're getting a nice South Florida winter, a crisp 70 degrees. Sweater weather. No, but it's like what? It was 65 this morning, wasn't it?
Yeah, like 62.
60. So 58,
Yeah,
60.
see, but it was a slap in the face. I just like a little preparation first.
Yeah.
I didn't get any preparation. I was like, just cold. I was wearing a thin polo and I was just cold.
Yeah.
So
It's funny too because like I would like step out to go take out my mother's dog, and I forgot that we were supposed to get this cold front. So I'm here with like essentially gym shorts.
Oh jeez.
They're thin. They're those thin ones too, like the thin gym shorts, like the lacrosse.
The ones you like wearing in the crib.
Yeah, exactly. Like the thin lacrosse shorts and football shorts you would get in high school.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it was really cold, and I'm like, yo, this is crazy.
Yeah.
But it was unsolicited, bro.
It was nice. It's been nice.
We didn't need that.
Do you know how nice it is to have a break from like all the humidity?
Yeah.
It always sounds like please make me sweat from every pore.
Oh, I know. And then for you girls with the hair, because I know humidity destroys your hair.
I absolutely hate it. I've probably ran through like 50 bottles of dehumidifying spray, and it just doesn't work.
So you're loving this weather. Is that why you let your hair down?
Yeah.
Hey, I'm feeling that.
And what about the colors and the clothes? Like, look, I got fall colors.
You got the fall colors.
Yes,
I got
I
a blazer
love
on,
fall.
jacket.
I love it.
I mean, pumpkin spice, the pumpkin patches. I'm sure every couple out there is gonna go get your infamous pumpkin patch photo. That little photo shoot.
Not true.
You guys aren't going?
Okay.
You and your girl going?
Don't give her ideas. She's gonna see this. No, I'm definitely going.
Yeah, I feel like that's more so when you have kids.
Yeah,
Like,
but I've seen couples like post up and just do it for the gram.
Maybe.
I'll wait.
Speaking of the gram and unsoliciting information, Jada Pinkett-Smith, can we talk about that for like 3 minutes?
No.
Because that's all she probably deserves.
Yeah.
Bro, so I can't like literally for the life of me like steer away from Jada Pinkett-Smith reels, Will Smith reels, memes. Like the memes get crazy.
They're unavoidable.
They're unavoidable on your Explore page. It's nuts. And it's on the radio, so you can't even turn on the radio because Steve Harvey's talking about it. The Rick and Smiley show's talking about it. Charlamagne the God's talking about it. And it's like, oh my gosh, can we stop? And it's like so much information that the public did not need. Like it was so unsolicited. And it all started years ago with this whole entanglement situation with, what's his name? August something. Alsina? The R&B singer.
I don't know his last name, but I know his name.
Like August Alsina in this entanglement, and then making it a trend where it starts to bleed into culture. And then they had the entanglement T-shirts. I'm in the entanglement.
Yeah.
And it was crazy. And then she just starts. I mean, the slap heard round the world, right? When Will Smith smacked Chris Rock. Looking back now and all the stuff in the information that was given to the public that we didn't really need, she starts, saying that her and Will Smith aren't together. They're separated since 2016. And I'm thinking, and the public's thinking like, wow, Will Smith actually made a a scene, and sometimes and people will say a mockery of himself by doing what he did. Was it the Grammys?
I forget, Oscars, Grammys.
An award show.
They're an award show.
Sorry.
That's all right. An award show, and then for her to like say that a guy that died 27 years ago is her soulmate is kind of like putting salt in the wound. You know what I'm saying? Like, what is going on? Like, why are we even having this information in front of our screens? But here we are talking about Jada Pinkett-Smith. So
here's the thing, and I'm going to say one thing about her.
She needs a deliverance for sure.
She's sending mixed messages, right? Because she hosts a round table, right? It's supposed to be uplifting, positive stuff, right? The thing is, she's using transparency, right? She's saying that, it's all about transparency and I just want to be open, but you're not being transparent. You're just throwing your dirt out there, and you're making it seem okay for people to just throw their dirt out there. There's a difference between me talking about an issue I have with Candace, my girlfriend, in an objective manner, right? There's another thing for me to throw her dirt out on camera, right? So everything she's doing is in the name of transparency, and I just don't like it.
Right.
I'm like, it's the way she's going about it. Just some of the stuff they're going through is probably normal stuff that people go through,
right?
But how you handle it was what makes it different. And
it's just becoming a really bad episode of Jersey Shore.
Yeah,
when Sammy and Ron were going through their stuff, and Sam's on the camera going, "I hate you," and then 3 episodes later they're like making out, and so it just becomes so toxic. Like I'm not a woman, but like as a woman, like how do you feel about someone like a Jada Pinkett-Smith who is she's making herself relevant with all the rhetoric that she's spewing now about her. About her relationships and entanglements and her own individuality. But like us as Christians, when we look at it in a spiritual lens, especially you as a woman, like what would your take be with everything that's been going on since she's had entanglements and these roundtable talks and stuff like that? Because there is a difference between transparency and just giving unsolicited information to the public for the public viewing and for the public listening.
Yeah, like he said, they're humans. We go through the same things.
Right.
Obviously, the way that it's being dealt with is like, it's for the entire world to see.
Yeah.
So I don't see how that's effective and how that can like help a relationship move forward healthily.
Yeah.
If that is what they want. It seems like Jada doesn't want that.
Right.
And I don't think that's not love. It's not commitment.
Right.
She's just leaving him out on the street.
Yeah.
Like, all right, just do what you want.
And it's very difficult to empathize as a woman to another woman with the whole situation because you don't know where even Will Smith stands. Like he has been really quiet about the situation. I know that he had a somewhat of a public apology towards Chris Rock since the incident, but ever since Jada Pinkett has been saying Tupac's her soulmate a couple of tweets ago, I feel like she just tweets these unsolicited stuff that we don't even ask for. No one's asking you about how you feel about Tupac, who is obviously an iconic figure in American culture, and especially in the Black community and the hip hop community. I get all that, but like, why now? Why during the times of dealing with the domestic issues that they both have? Because apparently, I think news broke out not too long ago that they've been separated since 2016. So it's like, okay, you're officially married, you're legally married, but you're been separated since 2016. So that's
like 7 years.
Yeah,
I think.
Right, and that's crazy because it shows like where society is at today. Because we've seen public figures go on their live and talk crap about their significant others because of baby mama drama or whatever the case may be. Like, Gucci Man and his, significant other, and Blueface and her, and
something like
yeah.
that.
So it seems like culture is like there's there's a part of culture that subscribes to that nonsensical stuff. But I just always, as a Christian, look at it like, why is it like such a like? Why does it become viral? Why does it become trendy? Why? And then we wonder why us as consumers, and the Bible really specifically says like we should watch what the heart and the eyes consume. Like the window gates of our souls are our eyes, right? Like what we consume, what we listen to, what we look at definitely has something spiritual that can be either a net positive or a net negative in our spiritual walk. So I always try to tell people like, hey, watch what you consume, watch what you watch on your socials, whether you have TikTok, Snapchat, Instagram, Facebook, or all the above. Like just watch what you be mindful of what you're consuming, because like you start seeing these things and then you wonder why certain things may bleed into your social lives. Like, and you start experiencing certain things that your friends that are close to your proximity may be going through, whether it be a breakup. Because sometimes when Christians break up, it's not a clean break anymore. When Christians break up, it's like pretty toxic. Like it's he said, she said, oh no, he said this and they know her and he knows him and I don't understand why they're talking crap about me. But then again, there's no conversations and there's no mediation being had, and then we wonder why the church community sometimes can get pretty toxic really fast in a really chaotic and noisy way. So I don't know if you experienced that before in the past with seeing maybe your fellow brothers and sisters in Christ navigating through that kind of stuff. Does that bring anything to light when we talk about that topic? Because I've seen it amongst my peers. Because I've been going to church. You and Mike knows. I've been doing this church thing since 2012, 2013. Wow. So I've been doing this whole church thing for a while, and it hasn't been perfect. I'm flawed just like the next guy, but it's just I see it so frequent. And I experienced it firsthand myself. And I don't know like your background as far as how you navigated through relationships in the past, but when do you know when to say no, and when do you know when to call it quits, quote unquote?
So I think most importantly, when you're looking to have a relationship with someone, you need to understand like what your criteria is. I know that people think it's stupid, but like literally make a list of what your pros and cons are. As a Christian, obviously my goal is to get married. Right. So I believe in courtship. Like I'm not dating someone just to date them. I'm dating them to marry. Right.
Now, so you're dating with a purpose.
Correct.
Exactly.
As all you Christians should be doing.
Exactly. So in the past, obviously that looked different for me because I wasn't saved. Right. I had a very different example of what relationships look like. And it definitely was the toxicity that you see on social media. Right. Now. Like family members, unfortunately, like being beat by their baby daddies and like divorces and alcoholism, all of that. So for me, it wasn't like for a purpose. It was just someone else to like come with me for the ride of like just being depressed. And it's just, it's very depressing. So now I have a very different criteria, right? Like I want a leader. I look at myself as a very different woman. Like I want to be that Proverbs 31 woman, right? Who can care for my family, care for my husband, my children, and like, do what we got to do to be fruitful and all of that. Amen. So that's my perspective on it.
Yeah, that's amazing, because a lot of women get stuck on this, post-feminism movement. Like I feel like ever since the post-feminism movement and how it got radicalized to what it is today, where some women subscribe to the radicalized version of that, where it's no longer empowering women, it's no longer getting women to for equal rights. It's more of like a narrative that's being used to that's weaponized and being used to break down the traditional men. It feels like a traditional woman isn't a thing of today. which it's not. That's erroneous. Like we need more traditional women. I feel like we need traditional women and we need traditional men that are going to progress society today. Because I think that statistics, and we can pull up the data, like the empirical data states that 9 times out of 10, a male will end up either in prison or on welfare due to the fact that they were not raised with a father figure. The lack of a father figure and a male dominant leader in the household, in the nuclear family, or the lack thereof, will put the young boy in that statistical bracket. They're doomed. They're literally set for failure. And the data will, and you guys can Google fact check 100%. Me. I'm not trying to push my narrative. This is a Google fact thing that you and I challenge you guys to go do your research. Like the empirical data shows that young men, especially young men and young women who are raised in a non-traditional, non-nuclear family typically live a life that's chaotic, that's messy, that's just, not, set up for a successful, a success story, basically. Correct. So, and that affects our brown and black, and you as a black person, me as a Hispanic person, it affects us more 100%. Because we're already, we already have like things that we have to overcome. We're already looking at the 8 ball. We're behind the 8 ball already. And then on top of that, if we are going to be raised without a father figure, without a male dominant voice in the house, it's going to just set us up for failure. And I've known fellow black friends and Hispanics that grew up in a broken home that ended up in prison, that ended up on welfare, that ended up going through addiction and going to rehab multiple times because the lack of a father, lack of a male voice, and that's the traumas and the scars that are built for the lack of that.
It's crazy too, because you want to look up another fact. He just told you to look up the fact of how many, or the percentage of males or kids, right, who when the father is missing from the home, the percentage or likelihood that those kids will have some kind of trouble. Then look at, and this isn't a male or female thing, but then look at the percentage of those of families where the woman is removed, and that percentage goes drastically down of those same of crime and drug abuse and just overall productivity in society, right? And it's not a male female thing, because the male masculine is needed just as much as the feminine. It's not one but it just shows the importance of having the man around, right? Even I was just telling, and true story, right? On God, telling my girlfriend today, because I've been having more motivation at work, right? More drive, and it's all come from her, right? And then the more she's given me the drive, right, the more I've been working and the more I've been kind of producing and being the leader, and the more she's submitting and the more she's giving me love, and it's going in a circle.
Right. So it's a healthier cycle.
Correct.
To be caught up in.
Instead of I've been in situations where I'm wondering why this particular woman isn't submitting to me, or she's wondering why I'm not taking care of business the way I'm supposed to, and for whatever reason there's that disconnect. But I think women, the reason I said that point is because having the male leader in the house is very, very important. But I don't think women understand that how important their role is, right? Just because the man is the leader doesn't mean you're here, right? You're literally here. He's leading. You're walking at the same pace parallel to him, but you just provide a different type of support. Secondary, it's different, right? It's not inferior, it's just different. And that whole feminism thing got women's minds mixed up, that like they were not, we thought they weren't that integral to the family, to the nuclear family. You know what I mean? And it was, they're obviously God's gift. You know what I mean? They're amazing. So it's tough.
Yeah, it is. It's difficult to navigate, absolutely, especially for women too, because you mentioned Proverbs 31, right? And a lot of times, and we have Tyler here, by the way, and he's our pastor in the house. So he can Bible fact us in case I get scripture screwed up. But sometimes, and I'm sure Tyler has heard this before, where at times even Proverbs 31 sometimes does get pulled out of context to push a narrative where it's ripping or robbing the actual role that a man does have in the house and the roles that the women have in the house as well. And you hit it spot on. Like, it's not about the men being superior and the women being inferior. It's more of the roles that are played. If the roles are played according to biblical principles and what says on Bible, there will be a healthier dynamic within that marriage, within that relationship, because a woman cannot submit to a man that's not submitting to the Lord.
Not one bit.
Because if that, it starts with the men. The men are called to be the leaders in the house, the leaders in the marriage, they're the priests, if you will, of the home, right? Their calling is to be, their altar is the house that they live, right? And the pulpit is the nuclear family that they are building, right? So he has that duty, that pastoral duty, to pastor their children and the wife. But he has to submit to the Lord first and lead a life that shows that. Because if your life isn't, if the byproduct is not, matching what you're preaching, then obviously that man is not submitting to the Lord. It's all how you men lead their lives. If a man claims that he's Christian and that he's this and he's that, but then leads a pretty sloppy life, then 9 times out of 10, he's not practicing his faith, right? Just like when, I had a Jewish friend for a long time in Long Island, New York. His name is Adam. And he was Jewish by ethnicity or by culture, but he wasn't a practicing Jew, where he was practicing his faith.
Going to synagogue.
And so you can't say that. I couldn't say that. Oh, well, he's Jewish. He believes in the Judeo laws and the Judeo way of things, because he doesn't. His life doesn't show that. So you know what I'm saying? So that same principle does fall on us, and it falls on the woman. Like, women shouldn't submit themselves to a man who is not submitting to the Lord. And it seems such a simple math equation, like 2 + 2 is 4, but we get it. I got it wrong. We've all gotten it wrong, because we all had our fair share of relationships and failed relationships. I know I have.
Oh, I haven't had any failed relationships. Mine all.
Shouts to Candace. But like, we failed and we've learned, but it's a simply, I guess as I age too, and we gain wisdom and we gain a sense of like reality at times, and we got to call it what we see, how we see it at times. But I think that for women, and this will be helpful, and you can actually speak on this, because I'm not a woman, obviously. I identify as a male.
Sure.
We would have to. It's crazy how we have to talk like that in 2023. But anyway, I digress. But as a woman, like, what would you encourage those women that are Christian, that are trying to be a productive member of the church body, and also at a local church? Because I do believe in the power of the local church. Yes. It's changed my life. It's changing Mike's life in a very net positive way. So what would you encourage a woman that may be struggling in that area where they find themselves submitting to the wrong person?
So first and foremost, obviously the same thing that applies to males. You have to submit yourself to God first.
Absolutely.
Right? When you're submitting yourself to the Lord, you're guided by Him. The Spirit is dwelling in you every day, guiding you in your decisions. So when you're looking to get into a courtship or relationship, what does God say about the type of man I should be with? But I also believe that we cannot ask for X, Y, and Z and not have X, Y, and Z. Now, I know for some people it's different, right? Some men don't look for women who are these boss babes, right? Some settle, well, not really settle, but don't mind someone who is, you know, working a simple job or has homemaking skills. So for you to be able to know like who you can build bond with and chase God together,
right?
I'm gonna look to that. So when I say Proverbs 31 in quotations, right? Obviously, we're not going to live up to everything.
Right.
We have our flesh, you know, we sin.
And we have flaws, right?
Exactly. So I'm just striving to be what that says, but also to be like Jesus. Because essentially that does describe him. He's kind, he's hardworking. He provides for his children. Right. So having that criteria, applying it to myself first, being healthy and mature and knowing what I want, and then just vetting somebody out, you know, like take your time, don't rush. Sometimes your season of singleness is like the most crucial time. You don't want to just jump into anything because then that's where you experience toxicity and it's just not where the spirit is leading you. So don't force it. Yeah, when you jump into it too fast, I feel like you're already losing. You're setting yourself up for failure because maybe 100%. You need that time to heal. I know that when I was going through breakups, even when I was in my 20s, like I felt like in my 20s I was a different person, obviously, with a different mindset, with different goals, different ambitions, even a different outlook in life, right? You know, even when because we known each other when we were in our 20s. Me and Mike go way back, pre Christ. But even before Christ, but even back then, like we had such a different outlook in life and even in women, right? So like, I forget what my mentor used to call those type of people where they just kind of hop into. I think he called it nesters. They would nest. Whoa. Like they were, because what happens is he called it that because if you find yourself nesting in a relationship and it lasts all but 4 or 6 months, and then 3 weeks later you jump on another one and you nest there, and then you jump on another one and you nest there, and then you jump on another one and then you nest there. You find yourself in these entanglements. You find yourself, you know, this whole different person within a year span or even a 2-year span. And you look back and I'm like, oh my gosh, I've been in 4 different relationships within a span of 2 years. Or not even relationships, but sometimes we would call them situationships, right? Oh, yeah. Where you would be dating, but there was no title. You were back then. The big thing was Facebook official. Like you weren't a Facebook official, but y'all were acting the part.
I was infamous for that, and I say that, only because I think people need to hear it. Right. But that was all out of insecurity and fear. Right. Right. Because I liked some of these women, but I really just was so afraid to like give myself all the time, and they always could recognize that something was missing, and I was just like, no, what do you mean? This is great. And it was sometimes a year, 2 years, and it was like, you're basically in a relationship. What do you like? Not, Wow. So where do you think that fear can't come? What is the root of that fear? Looking back, it was. This is gonna sound corny, but I feel like I was afraid of how much I can give, and I was worried about giving it to the wrong person. But to add to that, obviously I wasn't going to church. I had my stints with substances and stuff. So, of course, you will be afraid of giving yourself to the wrong person if you're not in a stable place. My lens by which I was choosing women was blurry always. So it was never, I wasn't going to choose right. So I was always afraid. I was like, is this one right? And I now know. And then obviously with Candace, who I talk about all the time, she's the one who brought me back into church. Right. You know what I mean? Yeah. Awesome. Cleaning myself up a little bit and trying to just get right. It's funny because she has a really strong relationship with the Lord, right? And her parents were both pastors, and she kind of was like, the last 3 years, it's kind of like a little voice and like trying to get me to get back into church. And I was like, but it's almost like her and God had like a secret covenant going on, because he was like, yeah, I got you, don't worry.
Right.
And then just keep bothering him. And then when I started to reconnect, it was like we caught up kind of where we left off.
Wow.
And it was all because of her.
Yeah.
You know, and now that fear is kind of gone at times. It's easier to give yourself, you know.
Right. Yeah. And I can relate to that fear, because sometimes I, for example, would always be scared to fail at anything. Like I wanted to do so good in school because I wanted to appease my parents and my peers, right? And just do things for my parents. But I always found myself at a younger age doing things for other people other than myself. And then that's not sustainable, because right. And that's not sustainable, because you can only get so far in life when you live a life like that, where you're people pleasing, like you said. And when you are doing things for other people's approval, and then when people don't really pay attention and they don't really care because they have the lives that they got to lead and do, you tend to kind of fall and get off your high horse, and then you get to a place where you're hurting yourself emotionally, spiritually, and you find yourself alone. Like, oh, nobody cares about me, and I don't know what to do, and I'm just not going to even risk it. I'm not going to risk doing this because I'm afraid I will fail. I'm afraid I'm not good enough. I'm afraid that I'm not called. I'm afraid that maybe it's not for me. I'm not articulate enough. Whatever the case may be, that bled into my relational life. Like when I was old enough to actually have, I guess, girlfriends and stuff, and getting into the dating pool, that I kind of was like scared in a sense, like that little boy in me. You know what I'm saying? Like that little boy in me was like, yo,
you never admitted it back then, right?
Right.
Now.
That little boy in me, bro. Like I was afraid to fail. So when I would get in these like situationships where I didn't want to give it a title because I didn't want to lose that person, because you were around people that inevitably would get into a breakup and they're no longer official anymore. And I would see it around me. And I'm like, I don't want to be them. I don't want to go through a breakup. I don't want to be heartbroken. I don't want to be left. You know what I'm saying? I don't want to be rejected. And the rejection for a dude, you know how it is. Yeah. We don't like to be rejected at anything. We don't like to be picked last when they're picking teams for football and basketball, bro. Like, you know what I'm saying?
We're actually way more sensitive than you guys, believe it or not.
Believe it or not.
Oh, I agree.
Yes. We just hide it well.
Yeah. Who do you think's more petty, guys or girls? Be honest.
Men.
Okay, and you come to that conclusion. Why? No, I'm just asking because there's no right or wrong answer.
I disagree, but
my experience is like, you guys get so butthurt
over,
and for women, it's like, I don't know. You kind of just, okay, that's how it is, but you still go through it in your head. But I feel like men, they deal with it so differently.
I think because men just hate being rejected. So out of that pain and out of that hurt, you know the old saying, right? Hurt people hurt people.
Oh, yes.
So when we get rejected and then we go through heartbreak, we're what? Hurt. So what do we do as hurt people? We want to hurt people. And even if it's not like consciously hurting people, some of us do consciously, deliberately hurt people because we're hurt. But sometimes I've been in seasons where I would be hurt and I would subconsciously or indirectly hurt the person next to me that had no business, getting cut because they weren't the ones that made me bleed. You know what I'm saying? So I think sometimes we cut the wrong people spiritually. We cut them when they were the ones that made us bleed. And I think I would have to agree with you because I've been around petty men and toxic men who are real petty. So yes, but not to say that girls
can definitely be petty too.
Be petty as well, and catty amongst each other.
Yeah.
But I think that
I don't agree. But
you don't agree with what?
I don't agree with females having drama with each other. I'm sorry, I should have clarified. We should be unified.
Right.
We should lift each other up. Women face persecution and tribulations every day.
Right.
I mean, same with men. Unfortunately, it's a little more silenced.
Right.
But women is like,
you
have to meet all these things or
criteria or right.
Yeah, you're looked at with a different value, which sucks. But
why do you think?
reality.
Why do you think nowadays you see more women being not unified? It's more of a division. Why do you think that?
I think now with the rise of this radical feminism, it's starting to make those who don't agree just feel anger because it's like, you're making us look stupid. It's embarrassing in the same way, like for me, when I see Latinos doing things that are not great for society or our communities, like, I personally feel embarrassed. That's not how we should portray ourselves in society.
Right.
So as for women, we're so stronger than we think, and we need to be able to pour into each other and provide that wisdom. And it's a hard world to live in, but once again, also for men. It just seems like so hate based. I feel like like the cattiness, like you said, it could be very cruel. Even with dudes, bro, like I feel like dudes just hate on another dude that's on a come up. Like, why do you, like, there's no need for hate, you know what I'm saying? And especially now, like, it's you can name all kinds of rhetoric out there that hates a certain thing. It could be whether it be a societal thing or even like in the influencer world, right? There's like influencers beefing with one another. Like, why? There's plenty of space in the social media world. Like, there's plenty of space, and like Christian influencers, please clean it up. Like, y'all try to like be apart from the world, and you subscribing to the pettiness and the cattiness, and you're calling yourself a Christian influencer, and you getting caught up in drama, and then publicizing it on your platforms, talking about the Calvinist that said this, that, and the third, and the Protestant that said this, that, and the third, and oh, by the way, this person that claims to be a Messianic whatever. Like, bro, like, I think that everybody should come together and have a kumbaya moment. Yes. Like, because the world needs it. Especially in our world, like, we cannot, like the Big C church and like the body of Christ, right? There's different branches in that body. There's different departments in that body. Like, the Calvinist has its space, right? The Protestant has its space, right? The person who is a charismatic has their space too. Like, everybody has their space. Everybody has an audience. Like, everybody has an audience. I have an audience. Like, the next person that's trying to, create content has their audience. Like, I remember, I'm not going to say his name because I haven't talked to him, so I'm not going to say his name, only because I haven't told him that I wanted to talk about him. So I'm just, out of respect, I'm not going to say his name. But he had this ambition about, doing content creating. And he was asking me like, yo, how do you do it? Like, you've had so many episodes and like, you're so consistent. Like, how is it that you're doing this? And my simple answer is just start. Yeah. Like, if you feel that God placed something in your heart and God gave you this God dream, or God gave you this inkling to go that direction, there shouldn't be any excuse as to why not to do it. Yeah. You know what I'm saying? Like, do it and don't worry about people hating on you. Like, I think that's like the first step with anything in life, right? To regardless. You gotta cancel out the noise. Like, that's why I love Kobe so much. R.I.P. Kobe, but like, that's why I love Kobe so much, because that Mamba mentality was it. Like, Mamba mentality was you'll go get yours, no matter the obstacle, no matter how high the mountain, no matter how loud it can get around you, no matter how loud the so-called quote-unquote haters may sound. Like, you just go get it, because it's only you that's going to go get it. No one else is going to do it for you. Like, why did you pursue being a lawyer?
Yeah.
You had to cancel some noise.
I did, because that was on the tail end of all my transgressions that I mentioned before.
Right.
So not only were there people who probably didn't believe in me, but I had to like shut out my own brain and your own demons. That was like, hey, Mike, this is not you. What are you talking about? You were that guy that was doing XYZ before. This isn't you. Where are you going? Stay over here. A lot of. And even still a lot of noise,
How do you cancel that noise out now as an older version of yourself?
Oh, this is an unfair question to ask me. This is an unfair question to ask me only because I just really, really got involved in my church.
Right.
And I'm like 1% in. But for me, once again, I'm a lawyer. I'm an overthinker. Right? Oh. And I care a lot. And getting involved, I care a lot about what other people think. And I know that sounds terrible, but the people I care about, yes, I do care about what they think. Yeah. For me to act like I don't care about what my mom thinks, my dad thinks, my sister thinks, my girlfriend thinks, right? But then over the last several weeks, the main thing I've seen, right, from the tail end of the blessings is that I don't really think about everybody's needs anymore. So if you picture it, right, it was like I had this connection from my heart to like 50 people. Right? And and there was a severed tie here. So it was just 50 strings going out this way.
So when you say severed tie, vertical.
This is vertical. There was no relationship.
So there was no vertical relationship.
Me not really going. And I would pray from time to time. But like now, like actually just starting to read the word. Yeah. Once again, 1% of my journey, nowhere close. Right. But the one difference was that now that I start praying to God and worshiping and praising, the strings, I don't have them out this way.
So you feel that they're no longer severed.
Yeah, well, this is no longer severed. So instead of having 50 this way, I don't have those. I have one here. So now I pray this way to my mom, about my mom and my sister, and about Candace and all this. Instead of it was like I was trying to pray to them. Right. Like, oh God, Javi, how can I help Javi? Like I want to help Javi. Da, da, da. Now I don't think that. Now I pray to God. Wow. And it's just so much simpler. It like shut out like. Yeah. That's what for me, as an overthinker, that's what was happening. I had all that in there. And now it's like, give it to God about that person, that situation, and I don't. Now, obviously, once again, it's going to probably come times where after like a year of this, it's going to get challenging and my relationship. But for me, as someone who's in 38 years always had the voices, that's been what I've seen in the first 5 weeks.
Yeah, that is beautiful. That's a beautiful picture. Thank you for sharing that because I think a lot of us kind of operate like that, especially like in America where everybody struggles with some type of anxiety, some type of PTSD, some type of mental ailment, you know what I'm saying, here in America. That's why I'm such an advocate on mental health. I always try to touch on mental health on every episode that I've had here. But it's like very important to kind of cast those things to the Lord, just like how Mike beautifully articulated that. Did you find yourself in seasons where you found it a little difficult to cancel out the noise?
Definitely.
Okay.
I've noticed that I am my biggest enemy. So it's not even noise that's around me, it's myself. Oh, wow, yeah. And it could be myself, or, I feel it in my spirit, like, oh, the enemy is like trying to do something here. Yeah. But for the most part, it's myself. And I think we all need to take accountability for some things that happen in our life. Yeah. Not just blame it on the enemy because, we make decisions for ourselves as well. Yeah. But yeah, I'm my biggest enemy. Like, I go in circles in my mind. Same thing as Mike, overthinker. Yeah. And I've experienced on and off seasons of that happening. But I always noticed that my faith never wavered. So since being in relationship with the Lord, I can freak out all I want. And I tell God this, I'm like, I'm going to complain. I'm going to complain to you. But I know you got it at the end of the day. Yeah. I'm going to let this all out on you. I'm mad at you right now, but I know you got it. Yeah. That's so good. Before Christ, it's like, how am I going to do this? What is going to happen with that? Why did this person say this? Did I do this? Are they mad at me? Blah, all of these things going in circles, just stealing my joy.
Wow.
And now it's peace.
Yeah.
When the Bible says be still, people have no idea how impactful that is.
It's so powerful.
Just be still.
Mm-hmm.
You don't need to be doing something 100 miles per hour all the time.
Yeah.
Like, just take in the air, look at the leaves and the animals around you, the birds and the lizards, like God's creation. Like, just be still.
Yeah.
And you'll be okay.
Yeah, that reminds me of Matthew chapter 6, right? Like, God has such a way to turning your anxieties and your worries into joy because of that reassurance, Pastor Tyler, right? You know where I'm going with this, chapter 6 and Matthew. Matter of fact, let's pull chapter 6 real quick. Why not? Why not?
Forward.
Why not? Let's do it.
What verse you want?
Chapter 6. I'm going to read the whole entire thing. No, I'm kidding. I'm going to pick up on verse 27. Can any one of you, by worrying, add a single hour to your life? This is Jesus talking, so this is all red letters. He's posing the question, can any one of you, by worrying, add a single hour to your life? And why do you worry about clothes? See how the flowers of the field grow? They do not labor or spin. Yet I tell you that not even Solomon in all his splendor was dressed like one of these. If that is how God clothes the grass of the field, which is here today and tomorrow is thrown into the fire, will he not much more clothe you, you of little faith? So do not worry. Here's that worry part, right? So do not worry. Verse 31. Do not worry, saying, what shall we eat, or what shall we drink, or what shall we wear? For the pagans run after all these things, and your heavenly Father knows that you need them. But seek first his kingdom. This is verse 33, my favorite verse. But seek first his kingdom and his righteousness, and all things will be given to you as well. Therefore, do not worry about tomorrow, for tomorrow will worry about itself. Each day has enough trouble of its own. And it's so true, so reassuring. Like, even reading that last couple of bars, as Kayla articulated, like, that's a bar. Yeah. That's a bar. Like, I struggle with anxiety. I struggle with mental health. You know that. I've been very transparent with that. Suicidal thoughts, the whole bit. Like, when I was doing this whole faith walk thing and taking it real serious, I would always go back to Matthew 6 and just read that and just read it, because it's such a friendly reminder that God's got it. You know, you mentioned, you pulled something from Psalms. I believe Psalms says, be still and know that I am God. Psalms, Pastor, Psalms. Yeah. So it's so reassuring. Like, yeah, we can say, oh, that's a Bible verse that, you know, that I read. But when you read certain Bible verses that you quote unquote read, but you read them at the precise time, at that pinnacle moment of your life, in that instance of a season that you're in, you read it different depending on where you're at in life, bro. Like, I can go back to Matthew 6 in all my success, or I'm in a high, right? I could go back to that and it'll be a friendly reminder, right? But I could go back to that when I'm in the valley, when I'm literally scraping at the bottom of the barrel of life, and I could go back to that same verse, and it gives me hope. Yes. It gives me light, and it gives me a hope and a peace that surpasses my understanding, knowing that God's got me, knowing that I shouldn't worry about tomorrow, that I have enough. You know, I have enough today. I don't have to focus on tomorrow. It actually recalibrates you, that verse, especially 31 through 34. It actually, for me anyway, I can only speak for myself. Like, whenever I read that in those seasons of my life where I'm like really low in the valley going through it, like, that recalibrates me and makes me want to stay present.
Yes.
Because as an overthinker, right, we project way too far ahead. And then it creates like this anxiety, this fear, like it's a fear thing. Like you're scared, you don't know what to do, you don't know what to expect, you don't even know what to anticipate. And then it makes you not know how to pivot, right? Because you're overthinking of what can happen in the future. That verse to me, it like recalibrates my spirit and says, you know what? I can't think way too ahead of time, and I can't waste any of my time looking back of what already happened. Like, why look way too back and why look way too forward? You know what I mean? And like, for those who are listening, like, if you find yourself looking at your past, don't identify yourself to your past. And if you find yourself not staying present, right? If you find yourself not staying present, be present. If it means blocking your social media for a season, if it means not going on TikTok or not going on Instagram constantly, to just recalibrate yourself and say, going on social media gives me anxiety because of XYZ, so I gotta stay off of that for a season. There's nothing wrong with that. No. Yeah, there's nothing wrong with that. And I'm a little thirsty, so I'm gonna grab a sip of water.
Quick note.
Yeah.
So it was talking about the wildflowers, right? I went to an Elevation worship concert recently, and I wrote in my notes one song lyric that stood out to me, and it was, "If he dresses the lilies with beauty and splendor, how much more will he clothe you?"
Oh, wow.
So I find that interesting that it says the same thing.
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, that's Bible right there. They were singing Bible.
Yep.
Finally, Elevation got one right. No, let me stop. No. I promise. I'm not beefing. I'm not not being.
I don't even know.
I'm not being abrasive.
Don't start. It's like a rabbit hole. Once you start going down, you can't come back up.
I just gave up.
We actually did the other night. We actually there was a song that we were looking at. We're like, that's not right. And we looked. I was like, it's not right.
Yeah. But no, it's amazing how what God can do in your life when you allow Him to. He doesn't force Himself to your life. You got to open up to Him, and wonderful things can happen in the midst of your chaos. In the midst of your noise, He makes a symphony out of it, and He has the power to do that and stuff like that. But anxiety is definitely a one for me. I used to take Xanax for anxiety.
Wow.
I don't know if you took any.
Yeah, I did for anxiety as well.
It's just hard to navigate.
Yeah, it's not a good one.
Yeah.
It's one of the man-made ones, and some of the problem with some of those things is that they are very effective. So if you have anxiety,
right,
your baseline is never going to be the same once you start taking that.
Oh.
You will always be, if your anxiety is a normal 6, you start taking Xanax, your normal baseline is now a 4. You get off Xanax, your normal is now a 9.
Really?
Yeah.
I never felt that when I was on it. But I also forced myself to wean myself off of it.
Right.
Because of my addiction.
So if you'll talk to some people now, and if they're prescribed, they're prescribed, and they don't ever, it's rare that people get off it. You're lucky.
Yeah.
You may not have been abusing it, but then some people abuse it or.
Oh no, I was abusing it.
Okay.
I ain't gonna lie. Especially in my early 20s, I would abuse it because I would just, I was just, again, pre-Christ, right? Like I was just wrestling and struggling with demons.
Yeah, of course.
And I just didn't know what to do. And then the next best fix, I guess, because it's like out there for public consumption. It's like, oh, you go to a doctor, and a doctor will prescribe you, XYZ. You know what I'm saying? The X was Xanax, and I abused it because it made me feel good in a sense, and it numbed the pain. Obviously, right. I would doze off and go to sleep.
Exactly,
and it was just something that it was. And I don't have anything against someone that may be dealing with a chemical imbalance, because I'm not gonna, as Christians, I feel like we shouldn't dismiss science.
Oh, God created science.
Correct. So there's a lot of Christians out there that subscribe in the belief that science is a bunch of baloney when it really isn't, and stuff like that. But I'm not going to completely dismiss that. I feel that there is prayer involved. There is a whole lot of God in there. There is a lot of things that can happen through a miracle of God where they can, deliver someone from those chains and bondages. Because I believe that is a chain, that is a bondage that's straight from the devil, bro. Like, those things that imbalance you in a way that you can't be an effective Christian is a demonic thing. And so when you feel that there is a chemical imbalance and you are prescribed a medication, I'm not against it. I think that through modern science and through these advances in that area, I feel that is a move of God. That is a miracle. So I'm not going to totally dismiss that.
No, true.
Yeah.
We'll talk about that another day. I was a victim of some of that systematic stuff. So I think everything has its place, but once again, I think kind of the center of this conversation is like God being removed from a lot of things, right? Because if God was involved, there would be a lot more coping mechanisms that go along with taking medications as opposed to just prescribing someone medications for years or just, and that's the thing I'm seeing now, because I feel like it makes it simpler, right? And I think if God was at the heart of it, then the aim would just be to be helping people.
Yeah.
And sometimes because I know someone, for example, I'm not going to say who, they were prescribed 2 30 milligram Adderall pills per day.
Wow.
Right? That's what they were able to take, which is 30 milligrams is probably good enough. But they were also prescribed 4 milligrams of Xanax a day. And they were told to take the Xanax in order to be able to go to sleep. And like that just, that
was similar to me. Yeah.
And that's someone who doesn't, isn't a partier, isn't a leisurely drug user, but they're trusting a medical professional and they believe that this is okay because they're being told, and it's slippery slope for people. But I've been a victim of certain things like that. Javi is right. There are people that obviously, are prescribing medication in the right doses and actually care. And,
right.
But I'm just an advocate for it. So.
Yeah. No, and I'm an advocate for first and foremost for prayer and for getting it,
foremost, right?
and getting plugged in with the right community, getting plugged in to the right church, and just being an active member of said church, because it's changed my life drastically. And I'm beginning to see the fruit of that once you started making that decision that you're going to get involved in a men's group. You said you were?
Yeah, getting involved.
Yeah, getting involved in a men's group. Saying yes to your no's. You know what I'm saying? All these things that you're currently doing, I think that's a net positive. And I think that you're going to see the fruit, if not already, of making those slight tweaks in your life. Obviously, the vertical relationship with the Lord is always going to be an everyday thing where we're going to have to nourish and cultivate and even be good stewards of that. You know what I'm saying? So I think all of us should put God first, as cliche as that may sound. It's one of those Christian cliche things that we say, put God first, cast those things to the Lord and cast those things down.
It's easy for me because I'm new, right? I'm like baby in it. So that's like my first two things. That's really all I'm doing right now. But no, absolutely.
But that's really the essentials, bro. Like, once you come to terms that, okay, I believe in Jesus. I believe that Jesus came, lived a perfect life that we couldn't live, died a death that we deserved, and he rose again. Those are baseline essentials that every Christian in every denomination should fall under, right? And then once we receive the Lord, it's our responsibility how we're going to steward that, how we're going to walk our salvation. And it comes with discipleship, right? And it comes with falling under grace too, and just taking it one day at a time kind of thing. And just not be afraid to fail.
Failure is inevitable.
It sure is. In all areas of our life.
And
right?
one day at a time too. Avi, you hit the nail on the head too, because another thing I did is when I would first start going back to church, if Javi brought me, my mind started like turning. So now this Sunday, I'm trying to think of what do I have to do? How do I have to be? This and that. This time around, it's just been go on Sunday. That's it. Then I went to Bible study on Monday.
Right.
That was it. There wasn't all these plans. It was just when the event's there, go. Just go. And then it took all the thinking out of it. And it's just been,
Yeah, that's been great. And it's so fruitful too. Like, I feel like it definitely takes the edge off, especially us who have some type of struggle with, did you struggle? I'm sure you struggle with some type of anxiety.
Oh yeah. I struggled with depression more than anything.
Yeah, same.
Of course that comes with anxiety, but depression was like the biggest one.
Was that early on?
It started when I was like 13.
Oh, okay.
So now I'm much better, of course.
Right.
But I feel those ebbs and flows where it's like sometimes there's this switch where it's just dark. It's I am a failure. Like, I shouldn't be here. I'm a burden to everyone. Just all these lies.
Yeah.
And I've never gone to a doctor for it, right? And I've seen similarities in family members and such, but I've dealt with it with God in my own manner. And I've just, like, if that is something that is supposed to be for me, I know the Lord will lead me to it.
Right.
And I will never let myself get to a point where I'm like, oh, I'm scared of myself.
Yeah.
So it's all about being real with yourself. If you need medication or help, like, I've sought therapy before, highly recommend. Even if you don't have a bunch of stuff wrong with you, it's healthy for you to do that.
Right.
Have an unbiased opinion, and to be able to have someone hear what's going on without a fear of judgment or anything else. Yeah.
So you, if you don't mind me asking, you were never medically diagnosed depression, right?
No, but
a form of depression.
But cousins and aunts
but you saw
diagnosed, and I'm like, okay.
So you would see like, oh, I may have that because of my cousin, or because how I see how my auntie is leading her life, and how it
and it's very evident when you go through it yourself too, and you talk with other people who struggled with the same thing. It's like, oh wow, I was struggling with something way deeper and heavier than I thought.
Right.
And I think, I don't want to say it's just a Hispanic community, but there's a stigma around mental health services and therapy. Like, therapy was never a conversation in my household growing up.
Never was for me.
It was like, you just don't tell nobody our business. You close your door and you deal with it by yourself.
That's a whole fact. That sounds like my family.
Yeah, so I think it's up to us, like the fellow community, to push that and know that you're not alone. No one should ever feel alone, because they're genuinely not, and your mind will lead you to think that, but you're not.
Oh yeah, I'm no stranger to that. That's a very sensitive topic for me, because it was pretty recent where I started sharing that. I never told you, even when we were kind of running around downtown partying and doing all these things, but I recently, because of therapy, shouts to all the therapists out there, and my therapist, it was not until I started seeing therapy and just, having someone that could objectively say some things and speak some life into my situation and what I was sharing and stuff like that. And then it's just a funny way how they're able to break down those walls where it was like a deep down secret, where I just kind of like made an oath to myself, like, I'm never gonna share this with people, because I'm known as the fun guy. I'm known as the guy that it's fun to hang out with, and I'm the happy, positive guy that likes to go party here and there. Like, I didn't want to, I guess it was that front that I didn't want to break, like that facade that I didn't want to annihilate and show my true self and what I was really going through. So I kept that a secret for a long time, because I tried to take my life. And when it was happening in real time, it was just like a snap of the finger, and I'm like, oh my gosh, what was I thinking, kind of thing. And I didn't want to share it with people, and I kept that for so many years, well into my late 20s, early 30s, and well into my 30s, I just kept it a secret. You know, it was like, but I knew that was still rooted in there. Mm-hmm. And looking back now, I can see why I behaved the way I behaved when I was triggered, because I didn't know how to navigate through my triggers, through my trauma, and through my scars, right? And so when my therapist said, "Oh, thank you for sharing that," he asked me, "Have you shared that with your close ones?" And dude, I broke down crying, and I said, "You're the first person I've told this to." And he's like, "Well, thank you for sharing that, but that's not a healthy way of dealing with those things. You have to share it. Number one, share it because you might free someone from that, because you're a survivor, and share it to those that you love, because now they can see a different side of you." And I didn't know how to really share it until I started speaking up on the podcast. And there's a podcast that I did with Zeke that we named Protect Your Brain, and I shared a little bit of my story as to how I was led to the idea of being a good idea, not just a idea, but a good idea. And I started entertaining that idea that it's probably a good idea for me not to be here anymore. Like, once you start entertaining that as a good idea, you're in a really dark place. And like you said, it's self-afflictive. Like, you start believing the lie. You start believing that you are alone. You start believing that you don't matter, that you were a mistake. Like, once you start subscribing to the fact that I didn't ask to be born, ideology, because a lot of people struggle with that. I didn't, people who are struggling with depression.
I've said that phrase so many times.
I've said it so many times until I got there, and I almost offed myself. I almost deleted myself from life, right? Because I was subscribing to that idea, like, I didn't ask to be here, and I'm just tired of being tired. I'm sick and tired of just being tired. I was getting tired, dude. Like, I was just tired.
It's a very exhausting feeling.
It really is.
Mentally and physically. It definitely can affect you physically. With me, when I was struggling with depression for quite a few months between the end of 2022 and the beginning of this year. And I literally had hives all over my body for all these months. And TMI, the worst menstrual experience. My cramps were like out of this world. I had cysts growing. And after I, changed a few things with my environment and my relationship with the Lord, all of it went away.
Amen.
So it's like, people don't realize how important it is to heavily rely on the Lord. But also understanding, like, this is real life stuff. It's a real life struggle. It's so real. And like, again, with the Black and brown community, it's a stigma, like Kayla said, like, we are told, suck it up. It's all right. And as in our culture, even in the Black culture, right?
Even in Jamaicans especially. In
Jamaicans, I looked at it, and us as a community, we looked at therapy as a luxury item. It's something that the rich people do. It's something that
we don't have money for that.
Or just the messed up people do. You know what I mean? Like, your parents don't want you to go because you're messed up. If it
was a sign of weakness.
100%. So once I said, you know what, it isn't a luxury item. Now that I have insurance, there's no excuse anymore. I have insurance. My insurance is covering it. Why not do it? You know what I mean? And so, like, I always tell people, like, you're dealing with anxiety, especially now, with what's going on in the world right now, all this wicked stuff that's going on. And we'll touch on it for the remainder of the pod, because I got called out, guys. I got called out on social media. As I don't have a personal Instagram. It's strictly Kingdom Talks. It's podcast. It's all my content. I put myself out there. I put my guests out there on clips as well. And it's just strictly podcast. So everybody seems to kind of catch the fact that I am Christian because I'm unapologetically a Christian. I don't try to hide that. And so I get these DMs like, why aren't you talking about the conflict in the Middle East? Why aren't you talking about this? Why aren't you talking about that? Why aren't you talking about that? And And the simple answer is a no answer because I don't need to answer to those people, right?
Yeah.
But that's the simple answer. The more elaborate answer is, we kind of touched on it off the camera. Like, it's damned if you do and damned if you don't.
Mm-hmm.
If you say something, it's like, oh, why are you taking that side?
Mm-hmm.
And if you say another thing, it's like, oh, well, you have no empathy for the other side.
Mm-hmm.
So it's like, well, let's tackle it as a Christian, that follows Judeo-Christian beliefs, right?
Mm-hmm.
I believe that the slaughtering of innocent people, no matter what side of the spectrum you're on, is heinous. Mm-hmm. It should be condemned, and it's like the most wicked. I mean, wicked is not even the word, from the stuff that we're hearing and the stuff that we're reading and seeing. I mean, from the Daily Wire to the Matt Walshes of the world to Ben Shapiro to what's his name? Pierce Morgan or what?
Yeah.
Pierce Morgan having people on his show talking about the conflict that's going on over in Israel and stuff like that. There's it's just so complex because it's such an ancient war, and in the last 75 years of this going on with those two regions, it's no one's gotten it right on both sides. And it just sucks that innocent bystanders on both sides are getting slaughtered and killed. I mean, reading about babies getting decapitated, it isn't something that the regular folk should be reading in 2023. It's just
and definitely not being read or recycled 24 hours a day, all day. There's a part of me that's like, not that I don't have the empathy, but there's only so much you can absorb, right? As much empathy and care that you want to have for people, it's like, if I take on too much empathy, I can't take care of myself and my girlfriend and my daughter and my parents. So it's a lot. Some of the gruesome pictures. If you watch the same news program for 30 minutes, you'll see the same gruesome photo like 37 times in 30 minutes, and it's the difference between education and just overkill sometimes.
Yeah. It's sad. I don't know if you wanted to touch on that or say something about that.
Just in general, being someone who feels so heavily and especially loves children. Yeah. This has been absolutely overwhelming for me. Yeah. And it's given me a higher sense of gratitude as well because look outside, like there are cars driving. We got a gas station over there. I want to pick up a donut. I could go down the street. And there's these kids like in rubble and families just in terror and absolute shock and grief. No one should be experiencing that. And it's all political at the end of the day. And it's really sad that men, mankind want so much power and money and just fueled with greed that it's at the expense of innocent lives. Yeah. It's very saddening.
At the expense of our brothers and sisters, right? We're all technically supposed to be brothers and sisters. Yeah. So like, me taking care of my family at the expense of you and Kayla, like, no, that's not, you know what I mean? It's us together communally, and it just multiplies. That's what it's supposed to feel like or be like.
Yeah, because even with raising children, right? It like we were talking off camera when Richa and Isaiah were here. It does take a village to raise kids nowadays because kids are so exposed to so many wicked things from all spectrums of society standards, right? Like there's pornography out there. There's this. There's that. There's like hate rhetoric that kids should not be reading. Like there's stuff out there in the dark web that kids should not be exposed to.
On YouTube.
I mean, it's crazy out there. So, being a parent is a task in itself. And again, why it's so important to do in community with the members of your church, because you can rely on that village to help you in dire situations, to help you when your mother is going through chemo and battling cancer, when your teenage daughter is battling suicide. You need a village for that. You need a village for your daughter that's dealing with anxiety. You need a village when your grandfather has an ailment and he's looking at his last days. You need a village. You need a community to help you navigate through life. And doing life alone is a scary, scary place to be in, because not as scary. I think I was never alone. When I was going through my whole mental health thing, I was not alone, because I come from a nuclear family. But it just goes to show you that no one is exempt from suicide or mental health, or you can be on the highest tax bracket to Section 8. Like no one is exempt from that stuff. I've lost coworkers in the past that committed those things, and they're no longer with us. You know what I'm saying? So like, it's so important to just be around the right voices in the right spaces and places for you to know that you're not alone. Because the most dangerous place that a human being can be in is feeling alone when you have a circle of friends.
Yes. It's crazy how you could feel so isolated when there are so many people around you.
And when you have a family.
Yeah.
Loving parents like I had. You know what I mean? And yet I got there.
Yeah.
Yeah. I'm sorry. I thought I interrupted you, so I didn't want to.
No, you didn't.
Okay. So yes. So I think that
so God in therapy.
God in therapy. If anybody's gonna take anything away from this podcast, is God and therapy and getting plugged into the right community, the right people in your life. Listening to the right voices too, I feel is very, very important. The right voices are so crucial, man. Like, because if you remember, our moms used to tell us, like, show us your friends and I'll show you what you look like in 5 years.
Yeah, I mean,
you know what I'm saying? So it's like there's truth to that.
Yeah.
That there now as an older man, like, there's so much truth to those few words in that sentence. So it's very important. If you're a young adult, if you're a high school kid watching this or listening to this, look around you. Look around who's around you. See who your friends really are. Seek help. I'll leave the hotlines for the suicides helpline on the description of this show. And there's so many resources now. People think, I can't afford therapy. Yeah, you can.
Yeah, you can.
There's so many different programs now. There's pay by donation programs that you can just pay what you can what you can donate.
Local churches too.
Local churches.
At local churches, sometimes they have free resources as well.
Absolutely.
I don't know if you know this, but I've been going to therapy since I was 17. And so also, I don't judge, right? Because there's soundboard. There people who want to be there to listen are great, right? And when I was in college, when I was in law school, there were local people on campus who I would go and talk to about law school is terrible. I just drank myself into a stupor last night. Hey, I want to kill my teacher. Like, whatever it was, they're on campus as well, So there's those resources. But yeah, young kids do it. I was embarrassed back then, but I'm glad I did it.
Nothing to be ashamed of.
Yeah. I came into the party a little late. I started seeking therapy about right before COVID, so 3.5 years ago.
Not a bad time.
I'm doing it. I was doing it with my therapist then, Alex, who was actually on the podcast. I had him on the podcast early on. The first year of the podcast. Of launching the podcast. I think it was like one of the early episodes. He came and we spoke on mental health.
Yeah, check that one out. That's actually really cool.
He gave a lot of insight as to how the mind works, how we're our neurological makeup, and why we do the things that we do, why we even subscribe to the substances that we subscribe to with addiction and drug abuse and stuff like that. It was just a really solid podcast. So I'll actually leave the link to that on this description so you can go back and recap that episode. But yeah, this was good. This was good.
Good.
I'll let you guys have the last word. So I'll give you an opportunity to have the last word.
Just to piggyback off of what you said in terms of community.
Yeah.
Check in on your friends.
Yes, that's very important.
Please.
I'm the check-in king. Mike knows. I stay checking in. I check in with Tyler. Yeah. I check in with everybody. Only because it's funny too, because I know what it's like to feel alone when you're not alone. Mm-hmm. So I don't know if it's a mechanism of mine ever since I tried to commit the S word. I don't want to get demonetized here, but YouTube, man. But anyway, I tried to delete myself once upon a time. And so I think that's a mechanism too, where I'm like, I got to check in on my boys.
Yeah.
I got to check in on my boys. Mm-hmm. So I'm the check-in king. But continue, I'm sorry.
Even if someone is smiling and happy and joyful,
that was me.
Doesn't mean they're not struggling.
I was dying inside behind my smile.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. I unfortunately had a friend who committed suicide in 2020. Mm-hmm. Yeah. He was in the military, like he was about to have a baby.
Wow.
Most joyful person ever. Like he was everyone's hype man. Just and the news broke out to everyone that, you know, we all went to high school, and it was the most confusing thing ever.
It usually is.
And it's just like, what?
It's the most happiest, the most energetic, the most outgoing person that finds himself in that dark place and makes that one decision that they can't take back. Yeah. You know?
You have to check on each other.
Yes, that's a good one. Michael? I'll give you the last word.
Love, man.
Yeah.
Love. It's really it sounds so stupid and so simple, but like, even I use my parents a lot because it's a close example. Those are probably the people I love the most.
Right.
But they trigger me the quickest. And so if I could try to focus on love sometimes, and just think about how much I love them. My parents are getting older. You were an asshole when you were growing up. All these little things. Things get real simple. So when I think about me and not others and stuff, and obviously not him, then everything gets muddy.
Right. You know? Yeah. So, yeah, I feel
hard
that.
to do wrong when you're leading with love. Really hard to do wrong.
Yeah, lead with love because God is love. Love is God, and put God first. So thank you again, guys, for tuning in. If you were here for that 1 hour and 20-minute TED Talk.
What?
it was solid.
Candace, it was Javi's fault.
But if I'm going to leave you with anything, just to encourage you guys, you're not alone. Simple as that. You're definitely not alone. Reach out. If you're looking for a sign, this is your sign. Reach out to someone that you can trust. And you, as I always say, and as always Tyler says this too, DM us. If you feel that you can't DM anybody, you can DM us, and we'll
as his friend of however many years, he means it. You know,
I really do.
I don't know about Tyler too much. I don't know this guy on the camera, but no, he's a good guy. No, but I know Javi. I know they mean it. So definitely reach out.
Yes,
definitely reach out.
And subscribe, like, all that good stuff. The description's on if we're down here, down here, or maybe up here, depending on where.
Power of editing.
Yeah. Love you guys. Till next time. Peace.